The rain fell in heavy sheets over the glittering skyline, blurring the city lights into trembling streaks of gold and white. Daniel Harrington stood on the balcony of his penthouse, his hands shaking despite the warmth inside. To the world, Daniel was untouchable, a self-made millionaire, with properties stretching from Manhattan to Malibu. But that night, he felt smaller than the storm clouds above him. Inside the bedroom, his wife, Amara, lay curled on their king-size bed. 7 months pregnant, she pressed a gentle hand over her stomach, whispering softly to the child growing inside her. "You'll be safe," she murmured, her voice filled with fragile hope. But safety was an illusion in a marriage already cracking at the seams. Daniel's phone vibrated sharply in his hand. It was Vanessa. Vanessa, with her silky voice and dangerous promises. Vanessa, who had once been his assistant before becoming his secret escape from responsibility. She was crying on the other end. "Daniel," she sobbed, "there's been an accident. My car, it slid off the road near Lakewood Bridge. I can't get out. Please. I'm scared." His heart pounded. Behind him, Amara stirred and slowly sat up. Her eyes, once bright with laughter, were tired now, filled with silent questions. "Daniel," she whispered, "is everything okay?" He froze between two worlds. One was the woman who had stood beside him when he had nothing, who believed in his business when banks turned him away, who sold her jewelry to help him invest in his first company. The other was the woman who made him feel young, reckless, and unburdened. Vanessa's screams echoed through the phone. "I'm going to die." Daniel made his choice. He grabbed his coat. "Who was that?" Amara asked, trying to rise from the bed despite the strain on her swollen body. "Work emergency," he lied quickly, not meeting her eyes. "Daniel, please. I don't feel well tonight. The baby hasn't been moving much." He hesitated, just for a second, but the sound of sirens in the distance, and Vanessa's terrified voice, pulled him away. "I'll be back soon," he said coldly. He left. Amara stood in the doorway, tears sliding down her cheeks as she watched the elevator doors close. That was the last time she saw him as her husband. The storm grew worse as Daniel sped toward Lakewood Bridge. The roads were slick, nearly invisible beneath the rain. He told himself he was doing the right thing. A life was at stake. When he arrived, emergency lights painted the night red and blue. Vanessa's car hung dangerously over the edge of the broken guardrail. Firefighters were shouting commands. Daniel pushed through the crowd. Vanessa. She was pulled from the vehicle, shaking but alive. The moment she saw him, she clung to him as if he were her only anchor. "You came," she whispered. He held her tightly. And in that embrace, he did not see the other flashing lights racing toward his penthouse building. Back home, Amara had collapsed in the hallway. The baby had stopped moving. Her eyes 2 days later, the first thing she heard was a nurse speaking softly. "You're very lucky," the nurse said. "Your husband must be devastated." Amara turned her face toward the window. Through the glass, the storm clouds were gone. But so was her marriage. When she learned Daniel had been with another woman the night she nearly died, something inside her hardened, not with hatred, but with clarity. He had made his choice. Now she would make hers. She asked for no calls, no visitors. And when she was discharged a week later, she did not return to the penthouse. She disappeared. And Daniel buried an empty coffin. Months passed like shadows creeping across a wall, slow, silent, suffocating. Daniel Harrington stopped sleeping. The penthouse once filled with Amara's laughter felt like a mausoleum. The nursery he had designed, white walls, soft golden stars painted on the ceiling, remained untouched. He couldn't bring himself to step inside. He blamed himself every single day. Vanessa tried to comfort him at first, but guilt is a poison that spreads. Their relationship began to crumble under the weight of unspoken truth. Every time she reached for his hand, he remembered whose hand he had let go. 3 months after the funeral, Vanessa left. "You don't love me," she said quietly. "You never did." She was right. Daniel was alone. Meanwhile, 2 states away, Amara stood in front of a small bakery in Charleston. The wooden sign read, "Second Sunrise Cafe." She ran her fingers over her flat stomach. Grief still fresh, but no longer paralyzing. When she had awakened in the hospital and learned everything, she felt shattered beyond repair. But then a nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, had held her hand. "You survived for a reason," the nurse told her. "Don't waste that gift." Amara decided not to return to a man who had abandoned her in her darkest hour. She used the private savings she had quietly maintained, money Daniel never knew about, to start over. The cafe had once belonged to her grandmother. It had been closed for years, but she restored it with her own hands. She painted the walls pale blue. She baked every recipe from memory: lemon tarts, cinnamon rolls, chocolate croissants. At first, customers were few, but kindness spreads faster than rumors. Amara greeted every guest with warmth. She remembered names. She listened to stories. She donated leftovers to shelters. People began to talk about the quiet woman with sad eyes and a brave smile. She didn't tell anyone she had once lived in a penthouse. She didn't tell anyone about the baby she lost. But at night, when the cafe lights dimmed, she would sit by the window and whisper to the stars, "I hope you're proud of me." And somehow, she felt peace growing where pain once ruled. 1 year later, Second Sunrise Cafe was thriving. Local newspapers wrote about it. A feature article titled, "The Woman Who Rebuilt Her Life with Flour and Faith" went viral online. And in a glass office tower in New York, Daniel Harrington froze when he saw her face on his computer screen. Alive, smiling, breathing. He felt his heart stop. He read the article 3 times, unable to process the miracle, or the betrayal of misinformation that had convinced him she was gone. Without hesitation, he booked a flight. He didn't know if she would see him. He didn't know if she would forgive him. But he knew one thing. He had buried the wrong future. And now, he had to face the woman who came back alive. The bell above the cafe door chimed softly as Daniel stepped inside. The scent of cinnamon and fresh coffee wrapped around him like a memory he didn't deserve. Amara stood behind the counter, her hair tied back loosely, a dusting of flour on her cheek. She looked radiant, not because she was untouched by pain, but because she had survived it. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world disappeared. She did not gasp. She did not cry. She simply said, "We are closing in 10 minutes." Her calmness shattered him more than anger ever could. "Amara," he breathed, "you're alive." "Yes," she replied gently. "I am." He stepped closer. "They told me you were gone. I buried you." She swallowed, her composure steady. "You buried the version of me who waited for you that night." Silence fell between them. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I chose wrong. I can never forgive myself." She studied him carefully. He looked thinner, older, haunted. "You didn't choose wrong," she said softly. "You chose honestly." The truth cut deeper than accusation. "I loved you," he said desperately. "I know," she replied. "But love without loyalty is just emotion." He broke down then, in the middle of the cafe. The millionaire who had everything, except integrity. "I don't want your money," she continued. "I don't want revenge. I just want peace." He nodded, tears falling freely. "Can I at least help you?" he asked. She looked around at the cafe, the laughter, the warmth, the life she had built from ashes. "You already did," she said, "by leaving." Her strength stunned him. But as he turned to walk away, she added gently, "Daniel." He paused. "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you. For me." And in that moment, something inside him shifted. Not redemption. Not yet, but the beginning of understanding. Daniel didn't leave Charleston immediately. He rented a modest apartment instead of a luxury suite. Every morning, he sat at a corner table in the cafe, quietly working on his laptop. He didn't intrude. He didn't demand. He simply showed up. Weeks turned into months. He invested anonymously in local community programs. He volunteered at shelters Amara supported. He began rebuilding, not his wealth, but his character. Amara watched from a distance. She saw the change. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was steady. One evening, after closing, she approached his table. "Why are you still here?" she asked. He smiled faintly. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not running from my mistakes. She sat across from him. They talked, not about the affair, not about the storm, but about grief, about guilt, about growth. Slowly, cautiously, two wounded hearts began learning to speak again. 2 years later, Second Sunrise Cafe expanded into a second location. This time, Daniel's name was on the partnership papers, but only because Amara asked him to stand beside her, not in front of her. They did not rush back into marriage. They built friendship first, trust, transparency, and one quiet spring morning, standing beneath blooming cherry blossoms, Daniel knelt before her. "I don't deserve another chance," he said, "but I promise to spend my life deserving it." Amara smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "We are not who we used to be," she whispered, "and that's a good thing." They remarried in a small ceremony surrounded by cafe staff and friends. No headlines, no penthouse, just honesty. A year later, laughter filled their home again, this time from a baby girl with Amara's eyes. Daniel held his daughter gently, fear replaced by gratitude. He had once chosen selfishly, but love, when nurtured with humility, can rise again. And as the sun rose over Charleston, Amara stood by the window, holding her child close. Some stories end in tragedy, but theirs began again at sunrise. And this time, he chose her,